but teams have not largely, but teams have begun not announcing contract extensions for coaches or general managers all the time, especially if the coach or general manager is entrenched. They don't want anybody to know when their contracts are coming up. I don't remember the last time Gregg Popovich, where it was announced that it, like with a press release, that he signed a contract extension. I almost want to say I've never seen it in the 20 years I've been covering the NBA, but that's probably not true. But at the very least, it's been longer than my memory goes. And not only that, almost never. It's happened a few times where they will say the amount of years that a coach has in a contract extension, but that is quite rare.
Yeah, 5
even
years.
More rare. They announced it's a 5-year contract extension.
Well, they announced it right. They announced it right in conjunction with Adam Silver's big announcement for his pet project, the in-season tournament, which I am just going to say that I do not believe is a coincidence that they did it at the same time. I'm just going to say that.
The NBA Cup.
Hey, and they also announced it soon after Vic had a really uncomfortable to watch, disappointing summer league debut, in which, maybe that's also a way to take a little attention off the fact that he struggled. Just not that they're concerned about it, but like the weight of the world doesn't need to be on a teenage kid's shoulders, and make it clear that, hey, Pop is going to be with Victor Wembanyama through his rookie contract.
Yeah, Pop's contract's longer than Victor's.
$80 million too, Woj reported, and that is, Monty
more
Williams
than 80 million.
Okay, well, Monty Williams reset the market, and then Pop reset it again.
Well, Steve Kerr has 1 year left on his contract, and I don't know if that extension is going to get announced, but I'll bet he was very interested to see his buddy Pop get that come out there. The Spurs never leak or announce data like this, and they did. And that is fascinating on a number of fronts, including anybody who thought Pop was going to coach one more year and hang it up. But let me just say, in talking to people from the Spurs organization over the last couple of years, and maybe this was their party line, maybe they knew more than they were allowed to say or whatever, but when I talked to people from the Spurs organization, they would say, we don't think he's leaving, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So now there's a bunch of clarity. And it was in big, bold type in my email inbox, all caps. Gregg Popovich signs 5-year contract extension. I was like, okay, wowsy.
And then in parentheses, it said, so stop asking.
Right. Well, the thing about it was, at the conclusion of the Olympic gold medal, when he won the gold medal with Team USA in Tokyo, he kind of made some comments that made Mike Finger from the San Antonio Express News, was one of the American reporters over there. And it was all this relief and satisfaction. And, they had struggled. Remember, they lost the first game to France, and they had struggled in the World Cup a couple years prior. And so it was relief more than anything. And he was like, I don't even know how I'm going to go on and go back and coach the NBA after this. And he came off the podium because it's very tightly controlled, the interviews, and that you're only allowed to ask so many questions. And literally Mike Finger and I ran up to him and we're like, you're not retired. You're not, like it wasn't clear. We were so kind of on edge about it. So anyway, back to Wembanyama. You guys were there tonight. What were the final numbers? 27 points and 12 rebounds. Is that the final number?
27, 12, and 3 blocks, I believe. Let me double
That's
check.
correct. 9 for 14 shooting, hit a couple threes, and went 7 for 12 from the line.
So certainly much like this is what you expected from him. The other night was just, he was totally out of sync offensively. Now he did he swatted everything in sight except for the lob that Kai Jones threw down over his head. But this is the kind of performance you expected from a guy who we've typed up as the best prospect since LeBron.
Bontemps?
Yeah, I mean, look, when we talked on the pod the other day going into the weekend, I said I wasn't really interested in how he did from a stat standpoint in these games because I was just looking forward to seeing him play. And I think, to me, the best thing that could have happened to Victor Wembanyama in the Spurs was for him to be terrible in his first game, because there was so much hype and so much build up and so much attention on him. And he's going to be the greatest prospect of all time. He's going to come in here and dominate right away. And if he'd had the 27-point, 12 rebound game on Friday, that would have only shot up to like 1,000, right? And like MacMahon said, it was sort of uncomfortable to watch on Friday. You know, the crowd was sort of like willing him to try to do something. There were some boos throughout the game. Like, everyone was just sort of like, we're supposed to see a show, and the show didn't happen. So now
a lot of murmuring.
Yeah, it was interesting. But then today, you know, you saw him in the second quarter. He blocks his countryman, Ryan Rupert's 3-pointer right in front of their agents, sitting there with Victor's father, Felix. And then he goes down.
Great guy.
He is a very nice man. They then went down and, Victor takes a frankly terrible shot. He does his between the legs dribble, his fall away fading shot, like shouldn't have had any chance to go in, but it drops in. And from then on, his confidence shot right up.
Yeah, got a couple of dunks after that.
And then he was off to the races and he looked confident again. It was sort of like you could sort of see the pressure of like, oh, hey, I finally got something to go. And then he looked like himself again. And I think those two games, it's probably going to be a lot like what his rookie year is going to be like. There's going to be some games where he looks out of sync and lost and doesn't really know what to do. And, talking to some Spurs people, their guys were still trying to figure out where to play with him on the court and what the right spacing was. And he hadn't really done anything the past few weeks, obviously. So there was some rust to knock off in that first game, but there's going to be moments of brilliance like we saw for large stretches of the game today. And there's going to be moments where he looks like a fish out of water, like he did for most of the game on Friday. And I think everybody just has to remember he's a 19-year-old kid who is going to need some time to adjust, but obviously has truly immense potential.
Yeah, some time to adjust, some time to mature physically. And I just think need to tone down expectations. Like if this guy doesn't average 25 points a game next year, it's not a disappointment, right? Like, the comps to Kevin Durant, those might be a little ambitious, but let's also remember teenage Kevin Durant as a rookie averaged 20 points on 43% shooting and 29% from three. It's not like he just, was a 50, 40, 90 guy, right out of the chutes in the NBA. I don't know if Victor, I think we might have gotten a little carried away with the idea that, Victor's going to be a guy who you get him the ball, you space the floor, he goes to work. I think, and Bontemps and I were talking about this, I think he's going to be much more of a finisher than a creator. A catch and shoot, a lob guy, attack closeouts than maybe a guy who does a lot of ISOing, which is fine. Like you can be that guy and still be a phenomenal scorer. I think that point guard play is going to be absolutely critical to Victor's success with the Spurs. And they brought Trey Jones back. Looks like he'll start this year. We'll see how that looks moving forward. But again, to expect this guy to come in and look like prime Kevin Durant right off the bat at 7'4", that's asking too much.
Well, the one thing I will say that he brought over from the French league or tried to bring over is that he really wants to put the ball on the floor and create his own shot. Yep. He really wants to do that. And, you can tell he's worked real hard at that low dribble. He crouches down and crosses over and all that stuff. It's not going to be as easy as it, not that it was easy ever in the French league, but that's going to take some work. He is, he does have handles. Like he's not, he's definitely got it going. He can create his own shot, but the standard in the NBA for what you need to do that is higher than what he's used to.
And you know what? Chet Holmgren's very, very similar in that regard. These are guys at 7'1", 7'4", 3.5", whatever, who have extraordinary handles for their height. But extraordinary handles for your height and being able to ISO against team defense in the NBA is too, like you need more than just extraordinary handles. And, Chet has had, I think it's either 9 or 11 turnovers in 3 games, including 6 in 1 game in Salt Lake City. And, when he talked after his game the other day, he acknowledged like he's learning, hey, when can I be aggressive off the dribble? When do I need to move the ball and just, find another way to make a play? And basically, look, those guys can't be driving into traffic. The way Chet put it was, when you're 5 out and they've got 2 guys on the elbows, like that's not the time to try to put the ball on the floor and make the play. And I think both of them in half court, if they don't have a shot after 3 dribbles, I think they need to move the ball. This 6, 7, 8 dribbles, I don't think that's going to be their game, certainly early in their careers and maybe ever.
Well,
the other thing I'm going to say, Kevin Durant, I believe it took him 5 or 6 years before he had more assists than turnovers.
Yeah.
And I know that ball handling with the handle isn't the same as making a pass, but the point is Durant's ball skills took a long time to get to where they needed to be. And by the way, once he developed those ball skills, particularly where he could put the ball on the floor and get to the line, because that's where he went supercharged as a scorer.
Yeah.
Like I said, it took 5 or 6 years.
I just looked it up. It was his 6th NBA season.
Yeah.
Happened to have his basketball reference page up because I did look up his first.
Was that the year he won the MVP, or was it probably the year to finish top 3 in the MVP for the first time? Well, don't worry about looking that up. I'm sorry.
I look like stats and info.
You're certainly right about that, and he's going to obviously get better with that stuff in time. He also is like 5 inches bigger than even Kevin Durant, so we'll see, and could even grow more. So we'll see if it's even really something you could feasibly do at that height to dribble around. I think even more than point guard play, I think the biggest thing for the Spurs is going to be figuring out both the kind of players to put around him to make him succeed and how to play with him on the court, because he is just such a unique specimen as a player and the different things he can do. It's not as simple as like, oh yeah, you can run certain actions for him. And like I think they really are going to have to create an ecosystem around him that makes the most sense. And I think it is going to take some time to do that. Though some of the young wings they have, like Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan and Devin Vassell, I think are all guys that are pretty good fits early on.
You guys did get to hear, by the way, Sohan gave an interview during the game to Cassidy Hubbarth. It was spectacular.
What do you have to say?
Sohan's an interesting guy.
Well, Sohan, I think, is going to become a little bit more known now that Victor's on his team. He is a very interesting guy, but he was talking about some of the stuff that Pop does at, practice and stuff, including he was talking about his technique on defensive slides. So, excellent in-game interview. But anyway, I think you're right. The interesting thing I saw, I mean, look, they're barely running any offense. I mean, Summer League is awful, but like they were attempting to get him the ball in space.
Yeah.
Like you would do with a high volume wing player, quite frankly.
Yeah. And he's starting a lot of possessions down in the corner. And then they're running action where he starts in the corner and then, comes up to the wing, that sort of thing. I'm curious exactly how Sohan is going to fit into the Spurs rotation at this point, because they've made it very clear Victor Wembanyama is not a center. He's listed as a forward, not a forward center.
Yeah.
But so Sohan played all of his minutes at the 4, but he is a guy, he can put it on the floor. The big question with him is, can he shoot it? Draymond has been the most common comp that you hear for him. But do they start Zach? If they're starting Zach Collins at center, Vic at the 4, are they starting?
I think Sohan's coming off the bench. They're going to start Devin Vassell.
They love Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell might be the second most untouchable player on the roster after Victor. They love him.
Vassell's good and
scored 20 some odd a game last year. Not extraordinarily efficiently, but
my guess is their starting 5 will be Trey Jones, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Vic, and either Zach Collins, or if they get another center, that guy at center would be my guess. And Sohan will come off the bench.
it would be kind of fitting to have Sochan come off the bench, because Pop has compared his competitive spirit to Manu Ginobili, who obviously was one of the great 6 men of all time, and certainly for the Spurs was a huge part of the dynasty coming off the bench.
The other guy has been compared to is Boris Diaw, who was a guy who certainly had a lot of success coming off the bench for San Antonio also in his time there. But yeah, the other thing that stood out too, because I was at Victor's post-game press conference, I just continue to be very amused and amazed at the way he approaches the media and talks about both himself and just his overall confidence. He had a quote he got the first question he got asked in the press conference was about Gregg Popovich signing his extension. And what did you think of him signing the extension? Here's what he said. Of course, it's just another sign from him and from the franchise that they care about the project. There's something great going on that's starting, and we kind of knew it, meaning the extension, was going to happen, but now let's get it rolling. We can start now. Like he uses like Victor, I've been in a couple things with him now media wise. Like he talks about himself like as the grand project and like, this is what we're doing.
He's not bashful.
He's not bashful at all.
Yeah.
It is. And it's amazing. Like it's almost more amazing to hear him talk like this than even to watch him play. Because I've said it before on the pod. He says these things and they could easily come off as arrogant and seeming like kind of a jerk the way he talks. But when you listen to him, it never comes off that way. He's just like, oh yeah, this is what, we're doing something great here. We're going to get started. It's going to be fun. Like it's really fascinating. Like, especially in a second language, like the whole thing is just, he's a really, really impressive guy all the way around.
Yes. I think he's affable, right? Is that the word you used? He's affable. Yes. And the way he's says affable. It is, you're right. And he does do that. And he's very confident. And so, by the way, is Chet Holmgren. Who doesn't do as much media and isn't as smooth, but is also very, very confident in himself. So I saw that our old friend Michael C. Wright.
He is calm tree.
He is
Wichita Falls, Texas.
Proud Texan. Anyway, he I don't know if this is common knowledge, but he's the one I saw say it, that Victor was invited to the Fanatics NBA Players Association party on Saturday night, but skipped it because he wanted to get extra sleep and rest before his game on Sunday. And that made me smile for two reasons. Number one, that, I wrote the story, the first Wembanyama story I wrote about, the lead of the story was how him and his trainers really wanted to get 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night. I doubt that's been happening recently, but so he's trying at least.
It'd be a world record for Vegas.
The second thing is because I know that Michael Rubin, who runs Fanatics, CEO of Fanatics, has been in the news recently because of his white party in the Hamptons. He had another party, this time in Vegas. Michael Rubin was at Victor Wembanyama's lottery party. There was like, 60 people there. It was hard to get in, and Michael Rubin was there.
I'm not sure there's a room in the world that Michael Rubin can't get in if he doesn't want to at this point.
Right. So, he, the reason he was there is I think he was signing Victor. I don't think it's been announced, but I think that's what was going on, or getting
certainly trying to.
Yeah. I kind of got the impression that he had, because he was sort of brought into the inner circle. But be that as it may, Victor still said no to his party, which I liked.
Well, who else probably liked that a whole lot? The poor Spurs security guard, the security chief, right? Because if there's there's another incident in Vegas and the guy's like, "Oops, I did it again."
Or we may have to stop this pod.
Even for you, that was bad. That's saying something.
Come on, that was great.
Even for you.
I'm proud of myself.
He couldn't. His face.
It was
he couldn't wait
of the moment.
Well, the IT department was here in Vegas this weekend, and MacMahon was explaining how he showed so much restraint, and now he's proven he couldn't hold it any longer. So
she left. I have no.
Now all the guardrails are gone. That's right. The guardrails are gone. Just glad we're able to even do the pod. We're able to get him on the Wi-Fi.
She went home and she was elated that her favorite NBA player, actually second favorite NBA player, was on the flight.
Who was that?
I'm not saying.
We're not allowed to say?
Because she loves this guy because he's handsome. So I ain't giving her. I'm not saying. Her favorite's Giannis. I'm not telling you her second favorite.
Well, who had been flying to Dallas? I mean, we should.
I'm not saying. You might be on the right track. Nice guy, but I ain't down with the wife route.
JJ Barea?
It ain't Jose Juan.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.